And we're singing a song. Nobody asked. Here we go.
Nobody asked.
Nobody asked.
Nobody asked.
No, nobody asked.
Nobody. No one
Brought
did
to
it.
you. Brought to
Oh,
you
oh
today.
Christ.
Yeah. Oh.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Nobody Asked with
Yay!
thank you, audience. With Maria.
Oh, that's me.
Woo!
Hello.
Oh my God!
I
Oh
love
my God!
myself.
It's Maria.
Oh, yay.
And Colin. Boo! Boo!
No, I
Sucks.
will not have that kind of talk.
Oh, is that Colin up there? God, not again.
I love you, Colleen. I love you.
Well, I love me too.
That's the right attitude.
Yeah. Hey, Moby. Moby's having a good time over here. Yep. Today we'll be talking about the subjects of the Electoral College and the 3/5 Compromise and the first
The
Congress,
Constitutional Convention.
the Constitutional Convention, and then perhaps we will zoom forward and contextualize it in the modern day and go,
Maybe.
oh,
We'll see if we can
whoopsie.
do it.
Oh, dang, we tripped 250 years in the future and we didn't change shit. Balls. So, dang. Oh, man. Oh, my knees. So that will be, that'll be the day. All right. All right, Mom. Are you, today you're actually going to be introducing the first topic. And so it doesn't seem as fake, but it will still be fake. Will you introduce the first topic?
Yeah, so I kind of want to start off by talking about
Oh,
the
I'm getting a message. There's someone in my ear right now. Yes. Oh. I can't actually hear you. I can't hear you.
What's happening?
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I actually had you on mute. Oh, you're saying that we have an advertisement. All right, great. Today's episode, can you turn on the teleprompter? Great. Today's episode is sponsored by Tiny Baseball Bat. Ooh,
It's so
Tiny
cute.
Baseball Bat. You ever playing baseball and you're like, the strike zone, it's too easy to access. The Tiny Baseball Bat. With Tiny Baseball Bat, you can finally add that extra layer of difficulty to any baseball at bat that you have. You'll see the Tiny Baseball Bat used everywhere, from people's backyards to wiffle ball games to the wild card series of the National League between the New York Mets and the San Diego Padres. The San Diego Padres used full-size bats, and the Mets, after only winning one of the first two games, decided, you know what? Let's give all of our players a little tiny baseball bat so that they just can't get a single fucking hit for 9 innings and lose the game. Tiny baseball bat.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, for a second, I thought I could see how this might tie in, but then it didn't.
Complaining about the Mets, the fucking Mets, the cursed franchise, the Mets. I went to my first ever playoff baseball game this week, and it was so fun. I was right on the edge. I was in the lower bowl, but I was still in the like poor people can pay for these tickets lower bowl.
Okay.
Great, because you get people that are fans of the Mets. So I had shirtless dudes with Mets painted on their shirt or painted on their torsos around me, and I mean people were drunk off their asses. And then there were two people behind me who were watching a college football game on their phones during the playoff baseball game, and I was like, who did someone give you these tickets? Because this is the playoffs. And then there was one guy who was so drunk, and they gave us all these towels to wave in the air when things were going good, sports. And this one guy kept hitting the person next to me in the head, and I could see him boiling with rage throughout this. And he was like 6'6", 280. So I mean, if he began a rampage, I don't think it would have ended until there were many casualties. So I turned around to the person with the person with the towel, and I said, "Hey, can you tell your friend to not hit this guy in the back of the fucking head with a towel, because I don't want to catch any elbows when he's beating the shit out of you." And they were like, "Whoa." And then I turned around, and then the guy that was super tall just fist bumped me. Great. And the Mets won that game. But then next game, tiny bat game. God damn it.
It was a good story, though. I liked it.
Classic tiny bat.
It gave me a flashback to I wanted, you know how like you and your dad and your brother had all those foam bats, not foam bats, I'm sorry, foam swords, and you know, you beat each other up with them. Well, there was one day where I think Owen was just pestering me with one of these foam swords,
Mhm.
and I snatched it out of his hand and I threw it out the front door because I was done.
That's awesome. Dude, that one other great thing happened at that game that I'll remember for the rest of my life. There's been, I think I've talked about it on the show before, but there's been an invasive species of lanternfly in New York.
Lanternflies.
And
Yes.
they're all over the place, the spotted lanternfly. There was an SNL bit about them a week ago. So this is a big meme in New York by this point. And everyone's seen one. Everyone is stomping them out. You'll sometimes see people like walking down the street and see one and just go like full Assassin's Creed mode, like trying to sneak up behind it. It's become there's a sense of camaraderie that's formed out of a hatred for these bugs. Well, at the Mets game, while the game is happening and presumably boos and cheers are heard by the team, a spotted lanternfly flew above my section, and one of the people in my section pointed it out, and the whole section booed the spotted lanternfly. It was the best. Our picture was pitching and presumably threw a strike and was like, "That was good. That was a good one." But we were mad at a bug. It was so awesome. And
I'm now imagining somebody creates a lanternfly mascot, outfit, and they run the bases during the seventh inning stretch, and then somebody chases them around with a fly swatter or a boot. Just
oh yeah, no. If the Mets had like a Savannah Bananas, like their opposing team is the Party Animals, the Mets would be playing the spotted lanternflies.
Sure. Yeah, you guys just beat them up at halftime, or not halftime. There's no halftime. At the seventh inning stretch, you beat them up. You guys come out with bats, tiny bats, and just pummel them.
The best. Oh man, it was a great experience. But yeah, that second game was unfortunate. So what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
All right, today the subject that we're talking about. Oh, also an update on my book club. Still haven't finished the book. So.
You're going to have to give me the name of it again, and then I will post it, and then maybe I will also go find the book so that I can read it as well.
The name of the book is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman.
Richard Osman.
He's an enormous man. He looks like Frankenstein's monster was animated really well. And you're like, okay. Oh, you're like a real guy,
And he's an author. Good for him.
Good. I know, right?
You're surprised he can manage those tiny keys on the keyboard.
I imagine that he's purchased some sort of specialized keyboard.
Big boy buttons.
BBB.
I don't know. Yep. Okay. Should we talk about the topic at hand, which is again the Electoral College? And with a little bit of 3/5 compromise in there. So let us start. It is a brisk afternoon in 1787. I don't know what the temperature was. Let's pretend it was brisk.
They told me it was brisk.
It's Boston, and the United States has their independence, but they've been operating, strangely enough, for the last 11 years. Under not the Constitution, because we don't have a Constitution yet. They've been operating under the Articles of the Confederation. Now, the challenge of operating under the Articles of the Confederation is that kind of every state's kind of doing its own thing. It's doing what it wants. And it makes it really hard to make deals as a federal government. Like they made some deals with Paris and with England to, get money for X, Y, or Z, or to have treaties for what X, Y, or Z. But some of the states are like, yeah, I don't see that I want to do that. You want to come up through New Orleans and pay tariffs? I'm fine with doing that, but in another state's like, no, I'm not fine. So it just was a hot mess of everybody doing their own things, their own laws, their own taxes, their own tariffs. And so they decided to all come together. And it was kind of like a mixed notion. Some people thought, okay, we're just going to strengthen these Articles of the Confederation, make them better, make them run a little bit smoother. While other people were like, now let's just start over. And that's kind of what they did. Was they ended up kind of starting over. Eventually, everybody gets on board with this notion that let's make this function. Let's make a functional government. Let's write down what we're doing here, and that was good. Will be our Constitution. Now, one of the things that comes up, of course, is always going to be taxes, right? Okay. And so there's some disagreement about how to pay taxes to the federal government, because the federal government will have some responsibilities that it will need to pay for. And so at first they were like, okay, do we pay it by geography? Like you're a geographically large state. Should you pay more? But they'll be like, yo, but there's only 3 people living here. So why do we have to pay more than you guys in your tiny state with a gajillion people in it? So they kind of arrived at, all right, let's do it by population. Let's have taxes done by population, and let's also have representation done that way too. But some of the southern states, they were kind of like, well, wait a minute though. How though? Because
what
we've
kind
got
of population?
Like what do you mean? Like you're talking about free men or slaves? Because we have a really lot of slaves here, and we sort of have mixed feelings about it. Pineapple, like I don't want to pay I don't think our state should have to pay taxes based on all of these slaves. We should only pay taxes on the free people, but also I feel like we should get number of representatives that more aligned with the number of slaves we have. So it was kind of a push and a pull and a push and a pull.
A little bit of a cake and eat it too situation.
It was. And so kind of
was slaves.
Exactly. Now, realizing that slaves are not going to be able to vote, right? So they're not going to be represented. What's going on? They're not going to be paying taxes, but they're considered property, so they will be taxed as property. It's a real hot mess of debate, and really everything around slavery was a hot mess of debate during this time period, because depending on what part of the country you lived in, like the South, it was about, a third of people had slaves in the South. Slaves made about 30% of the population of the South, depending on where you lived. In Virginia, they made up like 60% of the population was slaves. So how do we untangle this mess? And how do we, there was definitely a belief we're doing something new here. Should we have slaves at all? But you just couldn't get agreement, right? And so this is how we have a whole bunch of compromises. And everything I'm talking about today is some form of compromise, starting with the 3/5 compromise. So in that agreement, we have arrived at population, not geography, as how we're going to pay for taxes. And they've decided that for at 3/5 of so they're going to count up all of the slaves, all of the non-free men, right? Because they're real careful. You're never going to find the word slave in the Constitution. There will be free men and non-free men. So all of the non-free men, all of the slaves are counted up, all of them. And they'll take the whole number and they'll divide it by 3/5, and they're going to count that portion towards your states. They're going to add that to your free men plus 3/5 of slaves. We're going to ignore all Indians. Indians get nothing. We aren't acknowledging their existence. That'd be an interesting one to think about, but maybe that's another day. And that's how we're going to pile this all together.
This seems like a rough day at the office for Congress. Like, what people matter and how much is just a real subject.
It is, but if you were the South and you're feeling like, well, I'm not going to I feel like we should get more votes than these than these people up here in Pennsylvania. Look at all these people here. I want to get votes, but also I don't want to get taxed for all of these people. So we'll still tax them, but we're going to tax them at this 3/5 rate, and we're going to count that population at that rate for taxes, and then we're going to use that population as well to determine how many representatives you get in the House of Representatives. So this is again, this is also where they decided about the Senate. Everybody's going to get the same amount of representatives in the Senate. So you get 2 senators, and then everybody will get a representative, plus, DC will get, a couple of those too. And so this is all collectively, and so we use that same model when it comes to the Electoral College. We say if you add your number of senators and the number of representatives you have together, we add all those together, we've decided that number should equal the number of delegates we use, or electorates, however you want to say it, to vote.
Electors.
Electors. You're right. Electors.
Okay.
Now, at the time, they were saying like one delegate would be about 30,000 people-ish. Can't go more than this, can't go less than this. But
that was one congressman for the House of Representatives was per 30,000, right?
But that's delegates. It's delegates, interestingly enough.
Okay, but what delegates for what? This is what I'm confused about.
I know, it's a weird word. I think they're using delegates to indicate electors.
But the electors are your House of Representatives.
They're different people, so this is important too.
They're different people, but the number is determined on your number of House of Representatives. So then to also say that it's per 30,000.
You're right. They clearly have to both mean the same thing. It has to be, yes, your House of Representatives, presumably, would be the same thing. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Now that there was a point over history, right, where as the number of representatives grew based on those numbers, they said, this is enough. We'll stop here. And they stopped at 435. And so if you divide the number of representatives that we have by our population, it's like it's one representative to every 760,000 people. If we were still using the old 30,000 number, we would have over 10,000 representatives, which is a lot of representatives, but I'm personally here for it. But why not? We would get so much done. No, we would get nothing done.
Every congressman would get to speak once per 2 terms.
You can only discuss your committee, and that's it. We've all dumped you into committees. Everybody gets one committee assignment. That's the only thing you vote on is your committee. Yep. Actually, I don't know. That might work, but okay. I lost track of where I was going.
Okay. 30,000, one per 30,000, and then
yeah. So when they decided to include it to make slaves, 3/5 of their population count towards that number, what that did was it gave Virginia, which was a slave state and had 60% of their population was slaves. They had like 200,000 slaves in Virginia at this time period. So it actually gave them a quarter of the vote. So it did the thing that we're afraid was going to happen right off the bat. Virginia gets a quarter of all of the electoral votes in this scenario at this time period. But everybody somewhat let that roll off their shoulders because it was pretty much uncontested that George Washington was the man still. So
true. So one question is, at the time, was it also still that in Virginia, if 51% of the vote was for George Washington, then all of those electors would vote for George Washington? Or was it?
This is a great question. So they did not have parties back then, right? So they didn't predict that we would have this broken down into a 2-party system that was devoid of multiple choices. They always thought, okay, you're going to have a few here, a few here, a few there. It'll be fine, So you kind of wanted to get 40% was the goal. 40%, you'd be fine. Because they had no parties. They this is the scenario we have where we are stuck in a two-party system. They did not anticipate.
Oh, I think George Washington definitely anticipated. He had that quote about it, but
Oh, did he? Well, maybe I don't know.
that might have been after that. But okay,
Oh,
but then
here
my
was the other
question.
thing.
Okay,
Here was the other thing is that the delegates were supposed to be able to kind of vote according to their own discretion. You know, they it wasn't like it is now where all state, you know, all if you win a state, you win all of those electorates. It wasn't presumed to be that way when it started. That's kind of evolved on its own and through state laws because guess what? The federal government has opted not to regulate the electoral college and how it's done. We said we'll let the states decide how they want to decide what the rules are for the delegates. Right? They're gonna decide how they're gonna select delegates because again, your representatives and your delegates are different people. They just use the same numbers to calculate them, and you know they make their own rules. And in at this point that we currently live in, it's winner takes all, right? If somebody wins a state, they get all of those votes. So in California, they've got would you say 56 or 52?
It's 54 electors. They have 52 in the House of Representatives.
Okay, so yeah, 54 electors. Then they get all of them in California. There's only two states where there's the option
Is it
where
Nebraska and Maine?
it is. It's Nebraska and Maine. Those are the only ones where the law would allow them to go rogue and say, that's not the way my district voted. My district voted this way. It's not winner takes all.
Although there is there is something that has been filed. There's this group of states right now that are in an agreement where once a supermajority of them are involved. So once enough of them where their electors are would win a presidency, there is an agreement that they will all become. It's not about the states' votes; it's about the national popular vote, who they give their electors to. So there are states that have voted to be a part of this agreement, which is positive. But until enough of them get into to win the Electoral College, that agreement does go into effect. So it is more than two that have voted to be in this, but
okay, and they can do that. Like the law allows for them to create a super delegation that's going to vote on the popular vote regardless of what their state does.
Yeah, the states, because the states choose their electors,
mm-hmm.
they've agreed into a cross-partisan agreement where once they have enough votes, they will all dedicate their electors to the national popular vote.
Okay.
Of course, that movement, it gained a lot of steam in the early 2000s, and now that Republicans have gone full, the popular vote doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. It's definitely lost some steam, but I think that one more state got added in like 2018, and so they are very close to that.
Huh. Yeah. That is news to me. I did not come across that in my reading. Should we talk about what the Electoral College even is? I mean, I think we all sort of know what it is, but it's stupid. So.
It's dumb. Yeah. That for starters is that it is dumb. The Electoral College is, it's yet another one of these things that benefited the South in this initial case. But the argument between a federalist and a state-based government, is there a name for state-based? It's not federalist.
States' rights is usually just what they say, but yeah, I don't know.
Confederate. The argument between these two led to a compromise wherein there was some budging on the idea that every individual across the country was first an American citizen and thusly should be evaluated as equal inside of an election. And so rather that it is the power of the states to funnel their voters into a certain direction, because the states are much more than like municipalities in a country in Europe. They are essentially free countries that are in a union, not unlike the EU, right? So that if you were to talk to like states' rights activists, then they would be trying to lead more in that direction. And so one of the compromises that occurred here is that as a benefit for a state for joining the union, you get those 2 senators no matter what your size. And I mean, the fortunate thing is that we don't have any truly minuscule states at the moment. Wyoming is small, especially in comparison to California, which is 80 times its population. But we do not have a Vatican City country like Italy does. And that would severely throw things off, because if there was a state that was able to create itself within our union that was, the size of my studio apartment, there would be 2 senators from this apartment, because you're a state, because you're a sovereign entity, which is nutso.
And you'd get a representative. So I don't know. Is your dog going to be the representative?
Yeah. So we get 3. Yeah, we're probably going to have to get someone to move in, or what we'll probably do is we'll probably elect Dr. Oz, because he's decided that you don't need to live the place that you are running to represent it. So,
well, he has like 12 houses. So,
okay, then Eric Adams, who lives in fucking New Jersey. Anyway, so this form of representation was created with the knowledge that smaller states would have more representation per unit population, but of course they will all individually be smaller than the large states, because the House of Representatives is nearly directly proportional to population.
It's pretty close.
It was meant to be a balance between those 2 forces. I mean, Montana, if Montana got together and was like, we really want to fight for this one type of legislation, like if Montana was a single entity with interests that were only Montana, which was the theory of this original form of government, and we've gotten away from it, they would not have an incredible amount of voting power, because they only have 3 representatives in Congress, but they would have more voting power than their population. The Electoral College borrowed from that, and the number of electors that you have is the exact same number as the number of senators that you have, plus the number of representatives in the House of Representatives that you have.
Right.
And so in most states, the winner of your election gets all of your electors. And honestly, the fact that the presidential elections have generally gone with popular vote, up until this century, is incredible, because it essentially mandates that there are some small Democrat states and that there are some small Republican states, which was not necessarily true. And we're getting away from that. But it's crazy that in California, for example, California could be 50-50 Republican Democrat. There could be one more Democrat, and that one voter will lead to almost 30 extra electors than were voted for, because of this winner-take-all system that exists within the states. By that same token, every one of the smaller states, an individual person has greater voting power at the Electoral College level. And so
than somebody in California.
In California or New York. There, it's all proportions. But I have a website here to share. What's my vote worth? Here we go. So here's the map right here. And so this uses something called a vote fraction, wherein your vote, your vote divided by or multiplied by, what was the way it was done? The number of electoral votes per state time over the electoral votes total times the total U.S. population over the state population.
Okay.
So it's just essentially your individual's voting power per state. And so you'll see, well, first thing that you'll see is that this looks a lot like, with some notable differences, this looks a lot like a voting map of Republican and Democrat, which might be part of the reason that this has become a larger conversation recently. Because some of the big states, New York, California, have a big issue. What's up? Oh, great. Ellie's here. So you're so distracting me right now.
I like how the turquoise states it looks like your vote is worth your vote. If that's where
yes.
So
one is when your one right here is when your vote is almost exactly the average vote for if it was a popular vote. I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining this, but it does have this handy dandy little tool down here wherein you can put a state and then determine what your vote is worth times, compared to someone else. So the biggest gap is Wyoming and California. Because Wyoming has that smallest population and California has the greatest, Wyoming has 3 representatives because of the 2 senators and the 1 House of Representatives individual. California has 55. So that number that I had was, from different census, I guess. But what we can do here, why it no work?
Because these numbers will change. That's part of why we have a census every 10 years. It does affect these numbers. If a state gains or loses the population, because we're only working with 435 representatives or 538 total electoral votes, this meant the number per state can change based on the census.
Yep. I'm trying to find the app that we can do it, but I am struggling to find it.
But if we back up a little further, just like the definition, like what is the Electoral College? It's just a set of electors who are selected to elect a candidate for office, because you don't directly vote in the United States for the president. You vote for the electors in your state. So one candidate is given this many electors, another, not this many, but like your state, let's say Utah's got six electoral votes. So Donald Trump during the last election, he had 6 that were for him, and then who ran against him? Oh, Biden. Biden had 6 that were for him, and then you're voting for which set of those electors are going to vote. So Biden's got to vote, and they're the ones that did it. Of course, they don't have to follow those rules. It's very weird, to be honest.
So here we see that my vote in New York for the presidency is worth 0.7 times as much as a vote in Mississippi.
So less.
So significantly less, right? And then if we compared it to Utah, I bet it will be almost the same. 0.7 times. So you guys just keep moving between these places with the same number of electors, the same teen pregnancy rates, and the same amount of religiousness. Mississippi and Utah are such similar states in such different states at the same time.
Very true. They're very different vibes, but they do vote similarly. Let's see. Okay, so if we also go back to the Constitutional Convention and when they were deciding about the Electoral College, right? They didn't even know how they wanted to do these votes, because definitely the idea of letting people vote, some people definitely had it. They were, so there was 2 schools of thoughts. There was like, let's let Congress vote for it, or let's let the people vote. And the reasons why you wouldn't want Congress to do it is because there was this feeling that they could be easily corrupted. You could get real chummy, with senators and with representatives that would be voting for you, and you could make some backroom deals. And, are we getting a fair election by having them do it? So that's why they have adopted these independent electors that are representatively the exact same number. Mm-hmm. But that's why they're independent. The other idea of having just your population vote, there was this idea that voters lacked the resources to be informed enough about what was going on. And if you could find a candidate who was very populist and knew how to kind of rabble rouse the people, that person could be very dangerous. Interesting. We've never had one of those before. We've never had a president like that.
No, but heaven forbid that we ever do.
Yep. That mobs could lead our country astray. This was a concern that they had. And so, because they were tired and they'd been arguing about this for the longest time, knowing that the Electoral College was imperfect, but they needed to go eat a sandwich and take a nap, they said, sure, let's just do the Electoral College. We'll figure it out later. 250
years later. one other thing that this is maybe a little bit of a sidebar here, but one other thing that sidetracks our democracy is that winner takes all format there. And so there's another metric by which you determine how valuable an individual voter is on the scale of the country, and that is based upon how partisan the state is, and then how influential the individual elections at this time are. And so it's a multiplication of those two things. So, is there any chance that your state can swing? How small of the population is there? That determines how powerful your vote is to actually affect change on a national level. And so states like California, where in the presidential election it's going to go blue, you'll see they're down here with a 1.8 weighting. But
Okay.
states like Alaska and Iowa and Ohio, an individual voter's weight is 200 times, or I guess that math isn't right, like 150 times greater than the electoral power of a voter in California. And so all these states that edge closer to being swing states. So Alaska is a new swing state. Iowa, Ohio, but I think it's also the small population that will multiply the vote power. Iowa, Ohio, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Texas. Individual voters in those states have an unbelievably high vote power because of the winner takes all system. So it's important to remember that the Electoral College is incredibly disruptive, especially when it is in tandem with winner takes all systems. The combination of those two things provides an inordinate amount of power to a small number of voters, not unlike Manchin in West Virginia, that fucking dork, where one senator is, because they're in the middle, has the most power. This has
And
also been a problem in the Supreme Court.
we talked about a lot of those swing states last week when we were talking about voter suppression, that you see those states are where they focus their voter suppression stuff on first, right? Because we know this is where we're going to be able to make the biggest difference is in these states. If we can get fewer people to vote, we can get the ones that we want to vote and make it harder for the ones that we don't want to vote. It's the same thing. Those states have a lot of voting power, and it is very interesting. Let's see. Pineapple asked why is the census every 10 years? Great question. I'm going to guess money.
Yeah, it's a major undertaking, and there's always a great deal of debate. I mean, one, because every time that the census changes, voting maps need to be changed. So the census has a bunch of downstream effects that are not only expensive and time consuming to change, but also incredibly politically active, or what's the word for it?
Reactive, volatile.
Politically volatile to work on. So, yeah, if you guys have seen all the headlines about voter maps in New York and Florida and Indiana in this country, that's the maps changed because of the census. So if they had to change every 2 years, which is when there are federal elections, that would be it would be a massive undertaking. And already the census itself is also politically volatile, because there is the question of how do you convince Hispanic populations to fill out the census when many of them are illegal immigrants? How do you, because they need to be, it's already been worked out that they need to be counted, that it's population, legal or illegal. But then there will be entire campaigns organized to freak out illegal immigrants from filling out the census, which they're already freaked out about getting deported. And so it's such a politically fraught situation that I think that the country can only handle it every 10 years. Also, people hate filling out the census. I mean,
They
people
hate it.
suck at it. So
They hate it with a passion. Even just deciding what your race is, or if you even feel like giving that information,
yeah.
Why does the government want to know that, right? Everybody these days has their hackles up about why, the government's spying on you, and why do they need this information?
Yeah, well, and it also asks for a binary answer to incredibly fraught fucking questions. I that I was actually filling out a grant this week, and it asked the percentage of multiracial individuals that the program served that we were writing a grant for, and we use census data to estimate that number. But the thing that's crazy is just at this point in the country, what attempting to define multiracial is so fraught and insane. And we put that it was 5.8% of the people that we serve in an area of the country that I know is diverse. And I'm like, there's no way on earth that it was
This number's correct.
25% of the population was black, right? The number of people that are like 1/8 or 1/4 white that will write down that they're black, are they multiracial? You know, or this is such a fraught question.
Right? How do you identify?
Yeah, ideas rather than anything resembling the truth, and also attempting to find something close to the truth of somebody's race. It becomes a real fucking nightmare. That I don't know. That was a sidebar, I guess. But
I mean, it was an interesting sidebar. But yeah, after every census, we do see a shuffling in the House of Representatives. States do lose representatives. States do gain representatives. That's kind of weird to think about. California last one. I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people are leaving California. They are getting priced out of the state. Really getting priced out of the West in general right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in Mississippi.
not in Mississippi. No, not Mississippi. And when my friend lived in Medina, Ohio, we were looking at how much it costs to live there, and we're like, all right, it's possible to live cheap in some places in this country, but you definitely see the forms of legislation that prevent this sort of that lead to this increase in like inequitability in terms of housing and stuff. God, it's so fucking infuriating. It's so infuriating to see people that masquerade as leftists being against development and then using racial identity as a way to prevent development in their neighborhoods, and then use that as some sort of fucking savior for the people that are in the neighborhoods and be like, people are being priced out of Harlem right now. I mean, it's amazing it didn't happen sooner that people were priced out in Harlem, because it is on Manhattan and has incredible access to public transportation. But people are slowly being priced out because rents are increasing. And yet there are all of these developers that want to come in because there are entire city blocks which are undedicated or are housing that has gone into disrepair, or they're businesses that have nothing above them in New York, in Manhattan, you know? And so these developers will come in and say, like, we want to build housing. And then these leftists who really represent people that own property in their district will go out and say, we don't want to support development of housing in these areas because development of housing brings in gentrifiers, because we're opening up new units that will bring in gentrifiers. So what we're going to do is we're going to completely forget Econ 101, and we're going to keep the supply of housing as low as fucking possible. And we're going to ask all of the constituents who have lived in this place our entire life to either bear the brunt of this increasing rent because there is a higher demand, but there's not a greater supply, or move out, and then the gentrifiers will come anyway because they have the money. The people it's like people in Harlem think that the gentrifiers are white people. But if you're even going to argue that gentrification is a thing, it's rich people that are the problem, and disproportionately white, I will admit. So I see how, you know, you saw the fastball coming at you and you identified it as a curveball. But here's the thing.
Or baseball.
You then ensure that the only people that move in are rich. So you amplify the problem. And do you know who knows that they're doing that? The representatives in Harlem, who are going to all of these fucking masquerade balls with their champagne and their fucking Negronis, Spagliatos, and they're talking with the owners of the property in Harlem who are supporting their campaign, and they're chuckling to themselves that they've convinced you, the voters, which I know no one from Harlem is watching this fucking show. They convinced you, the voters, in quotes, that It's actually supporting poor people to prevent development. And you know what? They've put together a very appealing argument because you want to hold on to the past. But you know what's never stopped fucking growing? New York City. That's what you buy into. People try to move here. And if you're on the side of, I don't want any more people to move here, you know where you should move? Where other people feel the same way. The southern border of fucking Texas. Okay? That's where people don't want people to move there all the time. And you sound just like fucking them. And what? It's different because people from fucking Mississippi are moving to are moving to New York. Guess what, bro? Mississippi is basically a fucking third world country. Okay? It is nutso there. The drinking, the drug abuse, the incredible levels of poverty, the absolute corruption in the government's unwillingness to help the poor, the fucking driving, the violence that exists, the corruption within the police, the fact that unless you are an
and you're really coming hard at Mississippi.
owner of property, the fact that unless you're an owner of property, you can't get the police to advocate for you. The absolutely insane sexual politics, the incest, the sexual assault problems, the fact that the only thing that brings in people to Mississippi is gambling, which is one of the things that is affiliated with falls into poverty from individuals who have the potential to escape it. All of these systems have made Mississippi a country within our country that is a fucking third world place that people are trying to escape to New York from. And you're like, don't move here. We're the city of immigrants. Anyway, the Electoral College is part of this problem.
Listen, it is interesting. You know, I should follow like the local news better, but I'm in a camper and, you know, watching the news.
Actually, like isn't your mom living there? LOL. She's living there in a fucking camper. This is what drives me crazy, is that my parents have the gall to call me in New York City the fucking opulent pearl of the East in this country. And they're like, do you feel unsafe in New York City? You live in a trailer park in Mississippi. Bro, if someone doesn't actively attempt to assault or murder you, you might get hit by some fucking wayward deer shot because somebody's trying to get an alligator, bro. If the people there or the government isn't trying to kill you, the fucking weather or the animals are trying to kill you. This place is the fucking side of America. It's nuts.
Listen, I can't argue with you. Like right now in Jackson, we know that they don't have clean water in Jackson, right? That nobody can drink the water. Okay, but then
maybe we should send some money to open some wells there, bro, because it's a fucking third world country.
Well, let's bring it further. Now they've decided in Jackson. I don't live in Jackson, but now they've decided that you can't. They're going to have no garbage pickup for the next like 12 weeks. So what is Jackson going to look like? No water. There's just garbage everywhere. Garbage in the streets. I will say Jackson's already kind of scary. It's weird because it's the state capital. So you wouldn't think, wait, is it the state capital or is Hattiesburg?
It is the state capital, yeah.
Yeah. So you wouldn't think that it would be such a giant hole, but it is. There's a lot of violence in Jackson. So it's very scary, apparently.
It's one of the highest crime rate places that, you know, these places, Mississippi and the Midwest, and these places that vote red are considered, they're considered rural voting areas, right? Because they are largely rural states, which makes sense, right? And then they will go and say, you know, the crime in urban centers is terrible. And who would have thought urban centers are always run by Democrats, right? New York is run by Democrats. DC is run by Democrats. Correct. But do you know what the worst urban centers are? The ones that are in fucking red states, dude. St. Louis is a nightmare. Mad Max, did you see Mad Max? It wasn't actually fictional. It was a documentary about St. Louis, Missouri. That place is a nightmare. I can't believe that they can afford to keep up a baseball stadium and that arch isn't toppled over by all of the fucking shootings. It is crazy. Jackson, Mississippi, that's the urban center of Mississippi. Nightmare fuel, bro. Like Toledo, I fucking hate Republicans, man. And I especially hate
I don't hate
Democrats who are
Republican people.
anti-immigration from within the country. Look, we should be sending aid to Mississippi. And we are. Mississippi, while being a states' rights fucking state, is absolutely suckling the teat of the federal government because they cannot support themselves. Because there's so much corruption in the government. And then they're like, oh, states' rights, I'm going to put that fucking dumb shit flag. And then I'm going to say it's not about slavery. I'm going to say it's about states' rights. If we left you alone, there would be black and white ads for that state. It's a nightmare, bro.
It is weird. I will say, even though Utah votes very similarly to Mississippi, it is a completely different vibe. They are a different kind of conservative than they are here. The streets here, there's like no shoulders. You feel like you're going to fall into the ditch at any moment. Everybody is driving the most dilapidated vehicle you've ever seen. Sometimes they'll string 3 of them together and drive down the highway like that. And you're like, you're allowed to string.
Oh, baby, we got one. Come on over, motherfucker. Why don't you look up the per capita crime statistics of New York? Yo, come at me, pineapple. Okay, you fucking fruit.
Fruit.
Come over here, and why don't you,
too,
putting comments in this bullshit, why don't you look up the per capita crime statistics? Because the whole shit's blown up. And look, I live in Harlem, bro. I live in the area that gets all this shit for crime. I don't live in the Bronx, thank God. But I live in Harlem. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. People think it has a lot of crime because in terms of numbers, right, we have a shooting most days. Hey, guess what, man? The population of the city is fucking 16 Wyomings. But then when you live in Wyoming and somebody gets shot 200 miles away, you don't affiliate that, right? You don't affiliate that with yourself, right? You have all the shit in Jackson, right? Look, man, there are more people on the island I live on than in the state of Mississippi. Oh. What are we talking about? This is nonsense.
Are you going to go ahead and give Ashley some shit too? I feel like you got to give Ashley some shit too because she started it.
But I like Ashley. But I mean, I like pineapple too. Pineapple? If we're being honest, but the whole point is that I'm opinionated. That
yes.
Here's the thing. In Mississippi, do you think there might be a shooting every day? I think it's Republicans that run Mississippi, right? And do you think there might be a shooting every day in Mississippi? I would guess there's a shooting every day. And yet people talk about New York. It's because we're all on top of each other, bro.
Yeah. Dude. Hey, did I tell you the story before? My sister, the doctor that she works for, he was having a problem where the air conditioning.
Chicago is rated the #1 city in the country by multiple organizations. The south side of Chicago has many problems, not the least of which is a gun problem. And there is certainly a gang violence problem in Chicago. But again, if you are buying into the fact that Chicago is one of the greatest crime cities in the country, you're suckling the teat of Fox News. Because even Chicago, with its litany of problems, and it does fucking have problems, doesn't touch Jackson or St. Louis in per capita violent crime. Okay? I would gladly walk the streets of South Chicago. I would walk public housing. I would walk everything before I walk the fucking streets of the impoverished neighborhoods that are not being helped in Jackson and St. Louis. And what are those states run by? Fucking Republicans. So
hey, man,
you are buying the shit.
She says, she broed you, just so you know. It's not only the South Side, bro.
Not only the South Side. Like, yeah, there's crime in Chicago. I've been to Chicago, okay? I got friends in Chicago. It's a beautiful fucking city. They got great food. It's truly magnificent. I like Mississippi. I can't believe people live there given the goddamn weather, but in a different way.
Agreed. In a different way.
In a different way. It's cold as shit in Chicago, but it is what it is. I love Chicago, but again, people will dig in on these. LA has a ton of problems. Chicago has a ton of problems. New York, it has a ton of problems. And you know what? We'll fucking deal with them because we love it. We love New York. But when people buy into these urban centers being hellholes of crime, They are buying into a false narrative. New York City, where I live, is one of the safest places in the country per capita. Am I within 10 miles of someone being murdered every day? Yes. Am I also within 10 miles of every celebrity on your television? Also, yes. Because everyone fucking lives here. Okay. Do you know why you're not within 10 miles of someone being murdered in Montana? Because you're within 10 miles of more bears than you are people. So shut the fuck up. It's just a different life.
All right, you took a lot of offense to that, but also funny. I enjoyed your I enjoyed your.
I love pineapple. Frankly, I think it goes great on pizza, but can't handle people disagreeing. We're not disagreeing. I'm talking about stats, motherfucker. Motherfucker. Okay. Disagreeing. You go out and you get some survey data because your boy knows the numbers. Okay. Oh man. In your fucking red state, I'm sure they don't fund education. So let me talk about something. Okay.
She's from Illinois.
Means the crimes per person. Per capita means the crimes per person. And that is a good judge of the likelihood that you will be a victim of a crime, right? Because it's like a proportion. The thing that people rally about, that they rant about, is the pure number of crimes that happen in all these places. And let me tell you, if you put together a city of one person, I will show you a city that has the fewest crimes in the whole country after I fucking murder you. Per capita, you're worse than St. Louis.
Man, Ashley just manned you too. She's like, I don't live in a red state, man.
I'm not talking about Ashley.
Oh, I'm in Pineapple. I'm in Pineapple. No, Ashley does live in a red state.
My city is red. No. I'm not talking about the red state. I'm talking about you red motherfucker.
She's not red. She's having fun with you.
My city is red, but sadly, this dump of a state is blue. You think she's not red?
Oh, okay, maybe she is. But she comes around. She comes here to have fun. So who's mad at her? we might get a couple things in. Listen, I feel like there's a lot of things that actual Republican people and Democrats actually agree on, but I just feel like it's the people in power that lie and trick you into thinking something different than what you really think.
You know what's crazy is the whole start of what I was saying is that the leftist elector or the leftist fucking state congressman that we have for my district is lying to the constituents of my district. The whole start of this thing was that the blue chick is lying because your boy is not blue or red. He's not even purple. I'm a color. I'm infrared, motherfucker. I'm ultraviolet. Okay. I'm not doing this shit because here's the deal. Oh my God. Listen, man, I'm open-minded. This dump of a state is blue. Dude, oh my God. Listen, man, I'm open-minded. But these stats, they make me think that you can't handle arguments. Shut the fuck up, dude. You fucking fruit. I swear to God.
She's colorblind. Oh, don't say colorblind. You'll be canceled. He's ultraviolet.
Fuck. That spiky ass fruit is funny. God damn it.
So funny.
God damn it.
Oh my gosh. Ashley sent me a TikTok about the purge earlier today, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that both you and your brother would be very down for a purge. And I'm very much like, can we just hide? How flat can you lay to the ground? Can we get some ghillie suits? Can we cover ourselves with leaves? Like, why are we purging? I don't want to purge.
The best argument that I've heard about the purge is that it's unrealistic about what crimes people would commit. Because not everyone is me, Not everyone wants to commit murder once it's allowed. Most people just want to be like, oh, dude, it's purge day. I'm going to do so much tax fraud, Like,
filing my taxes today. Enter.
Yeah, dude. I'm going to slander someone's name today, bro. Like, That's what the purge would actually be. And then it would be me driving to a very specific city in California, But
Why California? I don't want to know. Don't tell
what?
me. Don't tell me.
Hey, purge isn't allowed.
No
Allowed?
purging.
And you
No
know what?
purging.
Even though, here's why I will be a great politician is that even if a purge bill came and I wanted to do the purge so bad, which I do, uh, I would vote against it because I know my constituents wouldn't want to purge. You're welcome, New York.
Why California, not Mississippi? Man, the people here, man, it's just different. I think they have found out how to be happy in misery. It's real interesting.
Oh my God, it is so fucking depressing, the place that you live. And you live in the nicest place in the state. Ocean Springs is gorgeous, right? And yet,
it is gorgeous.
It is so goddamn depressing. And the food, man, is so bad. I mean, I love Whataburger, but the thing is that Whataburger is fine dining in the place you live. That the best food in Mississippi is Whataburger and Waffle House, and I love both, and I wish they were here. But the other food is so shit.
Oh, there's good food downtown. It's just sometimes it's work.
I mean, the falafel place was that was in Ocean Springs, but it's just like people, dude. What was that? That fucking it was like one step above Applebee's, and it had the fried cheese, which was delicious. But
I don't like that place.
It was Woody's. It was so emblematic of Mississippi, that place, where I was like, dude, you could not try to be healthy here. If you had this as your only meal of the day, you could be rolled down a bowling alley easily and with pace. It is crazy.
No, it is hard to eat well. And then the heat, everything is fried. I mean, I love me some Cane's chicken. I won't lie. I have a
Cane's is great, but it's just the best food is fast food. That's so bad.
It's my preference.
And one thing I will say is that people from cities get really yuppie about fast food. And it confused me for a long time that some of these comedians would be like, oh, you ate at Subway? Subway sucks shit. And you'd be like, Subway's fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine. And people would shit on Subway and McDonald's and all these places. And it confused me as somebody that moved from Pineapple. This might surprise you. From a rural area to a city. And I was surprised at how yuppie these people were about fast food. What I realized is that fast food is way worse in cities. Which is weird to think because fast food is the same everywhere. But in Utah, McDonald's had a waterfall in it. Okay. In New York, our McDonald's has a waterfall of crackheads. So it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's not great. And I will say that the fast food places do have a higher crime rate than Jackson, Mississippi. So that's what you got to know. Don't go to make all these Southerners showing up to fucking New York and be like, oh, we're in the big city. Let's get some Burger King. Don't do that. You're going to think the crime rate's really high.
I remember one time your dad was in DC at a Popeye's Chicken waiting for his food, and some guy came in with a machete because I don't remember what happened. He had some slight altercation. So he left, and he comes back in with a machete and starts chasing this dude around. Meanwhile, your dad just sits down to eat his chicken and enjoys the show of some dude chasing some other dude around with the machete in DC. So, I think you might be right about fast food not being it in the city. There was more crime there.
Don't do it as bad. Pineapple says, LOL, someone called him a ramen noodle head. Pineapple, that someone was you in this comment.
No. They're talking about Cody Brown from Sister Wives.
How am I supposed to know that shit, bro? My way.
Well, they were talking about Flagstaff, and they live in Flagstaff. Listen, if you know what they're talking about, then you know what they're talking about.
DC is a complicated. DC is like adjacent to the richest county in the entire country, and yet DC's a little confusing. Still great food though. Great food.
It is weird though. It is weird because you'll have homeless people like on the actual street, you know, not like tucked into a corner. Like
Yeah.
they are all the way on the corner, just lined up, you know, wrapped in their wool blankets. And you're like, there's no tent, no getting into an alcove to break the wind. I'm like, this is strange.
This is fair. Pineapple. That's fair. Excuse me. Yeah, no, DC is confusing. Another thing I think that gives cities a bad rap is the homeless people. But here's the thing. If you're a homeless person in middle America, why are you there? Right? That's not a good place to be. If you're going to be homeless in a city. There's food around. And that they're like, oh, there's no homeless people in fucking Jubinudi fucking Iowa. Why would they be there? There's no.
I don't know why anybody be in Jubinudi, Iowa.
There's no infrastructure, and also you guys are all fucking dickheads. It's not a good combination of things. We're at least attempting to legislate, you know, mental illness infrastructure. That's nice, you know. Of course they're here. Yeah. There's people.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's homeless here in Mississippi, and they definitely get chased around by the police. You know, they aren't just left, you know, to mind their own business. They're minding their own business. For some reason, taking a nap in the ditch. I don't know why. The police don't seem to like it when you take naps in the ditches. That's all I know. They will get you out of there. Go sleep somewhere else.
No, we don't.
Sometimes we get on our own roll. We see them. It's just like, I don't know how to squeeze that in.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, right, I know Colin has to go get some sushi, some fancy sushi.
But it's so crime infested around this sushi place that I'm going. I'm going to put on a flak jacket around this fucking fancy ass sushi place in Manhattan that I'm going to go to, and then after I go there, I think I'll get gelato across the street. And then if I want to go to another incredibly nice restaurant that's surprisingly affordable, maybe I'll go 50 feet away again. And those will be my options that are within that one block.
Why are you hating?
Because it's absolutely crazy that Dad was like, we worry about you in New York. I'm like, everyone around you does meth. You live in a trailer park in Mississippi.
I mean, I don't know. There's probably somebody.
There's the one neighbor on one side who I know has a very nice trailer.
He's gone. There's like literally nobody next to us now, all the way to the end.
Oh, he's gone. Damn.
So weird. Also, the Shed bought up this place, and now they're redoing it all.
Oh, nice.
They put I guess they're going to redo the bathroom or set it on fire. Both things are a possibility at the same time.
How soon until you're in the house?
Who knows?
Who knows? Who could tell you?
You know, should be in the next couple weeks, but also I don't know if I believe that. I the countertop lady is, man, she's crazy. She's crazy. We were just over there the other day, and she's just, first of all, offered to give me all kinds of countertop for free, small weird pieces, so that she had them out of her hair. But also, when am I going to get the countertop I want, please? I just literally, I can't get anything done until the countertop's done. Once the countertop goes in, then all the plumbing can go in. That's the finishing plumbing, right? Like, there's pipes coming out of walls and floors and stuff, but there's no toilets, there's no faucets, there's none of that stuff. So as soon as the countertops go in, then the plumbing can go in. And once the plumbing goes in, then the other hose bib goes on outside. Then the sod can get laid so that we have grass. It's like literally my countertops are throwing off my ability to have grass right now. They feel unrelated. I don't know.
That's crazy.
But it's stressing me out. We've got a refrigerator in the middle of the room and a washer and dryer in the middle of the room because we had to take delivery before the house was ready because we ordered them and we thought it was going to be ready.
Yep. And
now we're going to have to figure out how to hook that up ourselves. And I'm a little concerned. I mean, the refrigerator I'm not concerned about, but the washer and dryer I'm concerned about because it's a stacked one.
Oh, damn. Yep.
I don't want to mess it up. I don't know how it works. And it was a very fancy one. We got a fancy one.
I mean, you're in Mississippi. You're saving so much money. I feel like you can do fancy everything because you're in Mississippi.
I did. Listen, my refrigerator has 2 ice makers. One that makes the regular square rice, square ice and one that makes a little round balled ice for your adult
What?
beverages.
Oh my gosh.
I got a fancy one.
My mother, who doesn't drink, got a
I
fridge
I
that
love ice
makes
though.
drinking ice. That is awesome. All right. Well, that was the podcast, I guess.
You know, we're not fans of the Electoral College.
Dude,
I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
the shit's whack, and it works in tandem with other systems that are whack as fuck. And fuck, you know.
Yeah. States are the ones that have decided a long time ago that it's winner takes all. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is the way that it is. There have been the Electoral College has had more attempts at what's the word, amending than any other part of the Constitution, and still we haven't really done it. It would require an amendment to change it. Good luck.
Or that state agreement.
Well, then we would still have it. It would just be more equitably dividing the votes. But yes,
Well, it would be like a workaround.
it would be a workaround.
It would not be. It would be entirely based upon popular vote then.
Yes, well, potentially, if you could get every state to do that. Yes.
No, if you could get, you just need the majority.
Sure.
Sweet.
We can wish and hope.
That's the close. That's probably, if it's going to happen, that's probably how it's going to happen.
I think we got to get.
That, they might go back and fix things, but
I think we got to get more boomers out, and then I would love to think Gen X is going to change it. But I think you have a lot of Gen Xers that benefit from the system
you
right
guys
now.
just don't do shit. It's
We
like,
don't do shit.
what,
We think suffering's a virtue. It's a virtue.
You guys were, I mean, you guys were traumatized. It is. Your parents weren't there because they were both working jobs to benefit our great American economy so that the boomers could get rich. And you guys are just traumatized because your fucking parents didn't take care of you during the day. And then they bore all of the fruit of that labor. And you guys were just like,
man, do you know what Marlene said the other day? She said,
is my boss my dad?
She said every generation wants the thing that they didn't grow up with. So, like the boomers maybe didn't grow up with money because of the Great Depression and stuff like that. So they were out there seeking money. Then the next generation, because their parents were out there seeking money, grew up without parents. So they want time with their families really bad. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these different generational wants being displayed before us. So it is interesting.
So, I mean, I'm definitely outside of the norm for my age group because I definitely prioritize time with my family a lot. But as a generation, what do we want? I think a voice. I don't know. That's an interesting thing to think about. I'm interested in what Gen Z and millennials want.
A voice is a good answer, man. Those Gen Zers are loud as fuck. I'm here for it. Okay, we talked about the
Ellie just whispered something for me to say, and I have no fucking idea what she said.
Isn't that you got to wrap it up?
No. Oh, she said
that didn't clear it up, Colin.
I think no, I still barely heard you, but I think she said to not be taken advantage of by big industry. She gave me a thumbs up. To not be taken advantage of by big industry.
So you guys are going to crush monopolies? That'll be interesting to see. Do it.
I don't know if I agree. I mean, certainly we don't want to define ourselves off of our labor, which feels like it's in tandem with your idea. I think that we want to kill old people.
You know what? If I was actually going to listen to you guys, if I sat and thought about the things that I hear your generation saying a lot, you guys need things to mean something. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to work or if you're going to do anything, you guys need it to have some greater meaning and some big purpose. It's not just.
I like that idea. things are starting to feel meaningless, which is a little frustrating. And also, I do feel like a lot of labor was in pursuit of this great future, which we're currently living. And now it's like, what are we still doing though? Like, we can make, there's a level of like prosperity that we can maintain with an incredibly small amount of labor. And we're actively preventing ourselves from decreasing the amount of labor because of an obsession by the people above us of, instead of attempting to create a great life, attempting to create a great number, the Dow Jones. They're like, we want that number to be really big. And it's like, but actually we can have a really high quality of life for low labor. Wasn't that the goal? Wasn't the reason we built roads for our children to drive on them? Wasn't the reason that our children drove on them and our children innovated to decrease the burden on all of us to feed our children? Wasn't all of that to live a good life? If it's solved, can we stop, please?
I wish.
Dog, you know? Like,
yeah. Why can't we live that? Because you're absolutely right. The level of profits that are being made right now are astronomical, and yet they quibble.
And it's no longer for the point of society, right? Seriously, I do feel like if I was working to make people better, it would feel a lot better. But I feel like the generation has become disillusioned. This does fall into what Ellie's saying, where we're not working for making things better for the people around us. We're often working in a way that makes things worse for the people around us and make somebody running our company richer. And we're like, can you at least pay me more? They're like, no. Okay, well, I don't wanna. It's not a very convincing offer you've put together, you know? They're like, you should be honored to work. I'm like, why?
Exactly. No, that is very much a boomer and a Gen X thought process. Even though the Gen X's we can see past it a little bit better, where we're like, no. But at the same time, there's a part of us that it's been sort of ingrained in there a little bit. Yeah, like it is a luxury to work. It's
what are my fucking kids gonna look like? Because I mean, I still understand the like labor gives you meaning thing. Are my kids gonna be the first ones that are fully like, why would that give me meaning, Father? It is the orbs. You know?
Well, I mean, I guess if you get to making the orbs, sure.
They're fushigis.
Oh, they're just fushigis. You know, at some point we are going to create our space-time laser. I'm convinced.
Don't tell them about it, Mom.
Oh, I mean, I just like sounding like a crazy person. I just like sounding a little bit crazy when I talk about my space-time laser that, you know, is improbable. So
not if the nuclear war gets to us first. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining once a day again, especially that fucking red fruit.
She's yellow.
No, she's yellow. and I'm not colorblind. Yep. That is the show. Read your books, hug your mothers, unless they're boomers, then plant a cyanide pill in their Cabernet. Unless they're related to us. Those ones were fine.
There's a lot of lead poisoning that went around back then.
Yeah.
It might be time to just let them go. Just release them.
Man. I've been so concerned for so long. That your father has committed war crimes. I have no evidence.
My father?
But I'm just like, you know, so many American people committed war crimes in Vietnam. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared.
I don't know. I mean, he definitely killed people in Vietnam. I don't know that they were war crime level. He definitely also had shrapnel blow up in his own butt. Yeah. He had to get some shrapnel removed.
That shit sucks, man.
I'm guessing it wasn't that bad. He definitely has some PTSD.
Some good old PTSD. Did you guys watch The Greatest Beer Run Ever yet?
The Greatest Beer Run Ever?
It's a new movie with Zac
No.
Efron.
No.
It's a Vietnam wartime movie set in Inwood, Manhattan, because that's where movies are set. And a man that was not drafted but was part of drafted age is frustrated by the protests that he sees in New York and elsewhere against the Vietnam War, and believes that these protests are destroying the morale of soldiers in Vietnam who are fighting the good fight. And so he wants to show that the people that are still in America still care about the boys. And so he brings a duffel bag full of American beer to Vietnam and goes to find all of his friends that were drafted from Inwood, Manhattan, and bring them a beer. And the story is about the adventure that ensues. This is a true story that happened.
How did he even get into Vietnam? I mean, it's not like he had GPS.
He worked on merchant ships.
Oh, okay.
So he worked in the boiler room of a ship that was carrying ammo to Vietnam.
Okay. Well, at least that makes sense. I'm like, how did he get there?
It was really good. I mean, it's not like the best movie ever, but it's gotten not so good reviews. I thought it was really good, and I thought it handled the subject material in a very interesting way. And I told Dad that he should watch it. It's on Apple TV.
Oh, well, maybe we'll watch it this weekend then.
Sweet. Well, let me know what you think, because I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I love you. I've tried to end this podcast so many times.
I apologize.
No, I think it's me that keeps talking. I'm gonna go get sushi.
Okay. All right. Thanks for keeping us company. We're gonna throw the banner up there. We're gonna not the banner. We're gonna do the countdown clock, and we'll sing it. Oh, what am I doing? We'll sing a little tune on the way out. Thanks for coming to our show. It was very nice to see you.
The Electoral College sucks.
All jokes are jokes. Don't take them personally. I don't think you would, or you wouldn't still be here watching.
Take them personally.
It's fun to pick on each other. It's good for discourse sometimes when we're open-minded. It's good stuff. Let's be good to each other.
Let's don't care about your feelings.